All right, everyone, welcome back to the old switcheroo where we're talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jaymo. Join us on our epic quest to research and review all 200 plus games in the Nintendo Switch Online retro catalog. Today we'll be diving our way through Fighter's history and Doomsday Warrior in an episode that we are calling the next Bison Wannabes. I don't know if you get that reference, Mike, because you watched Street Fighter the movie recently. Pretty sure our guest has too. We'll get to her in a second. But, speaking of today's guest, I'm super excited. She was our first ever guest host on the old switcheroo, and she's also now our first ever musical guest. Welcome back to the show, the writer and performer of our awesome new theme song, Kristal Fields. Hi, Kristal.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm excited to talk about the Bison Wannabes. That's very clever,
Yes.
Jeremy.
I
That's
thought it was
good.
pretty clever.
I like it.
Do you get the reference, Mike?
I know who M. Bison is. That's how far I'm on this one.
So in the wonderful Jean-Claude Van Damme's Street Fighter, he says, "I'm gonna get in my boat and I'm gonna go kick that son of a bitch Bison's ass so hard, the next Bison wannabe is gonna feel it." Oh, it's such a good line. Oh, so Bison wannabes. Kristal, you like that show, right?
The movie?
Yes, people call movie shows sometimes. I usually don't. Sorry.
I want to talk to those people, Jeremy, because they're wrong.
Either I don't like it either.
No, I don't approve of that. I think that is a degradation of the English language.
Wow.
It's only acceptable if you've included the word picture before the word show.
That's true. Picture show.
That would make it acceptable. That's right, Mike. I do like that movie. I do. I think that might be the first time I ever saw Kylie Minogue, actually. That was like my introduction to Kylie, and it's been like a lifelong love affair ever since. So
Formative moment.
it was it was my root, I think. I think that was like my Kylie root was Street Fighter.
That's a lot funnier
well,
as an expression, given that she's Australian, and that has multiple interpretations.
What is Mike, I know what you're talking about. I thought this show wasn't blue.
Friends, Mike.
It's implied.
Kristal, speaking of roots and formative moments, you I think since we did our first episode, have been recording with the band, performing with the Lazy Circles.
I have.
Yeah. So how did that all come about? Because I think it's super cool, and I've listened to a couple of your songs. The Man in Uniform is a great song. And of course, I'm partial to our theme song, but tell me how that all came about.
Oh, well, Jeremy, I mean, I started dating the band leader. That's how it came about.
You got the fast pass in Disneyland terms.
Well, he tricked me a little because initially he's like, we have a show coming up. You should sing background on like one song, maybe two. And then I get there and he is like, you're gonna play maracas. And I had never played maracas before. And then he's like, you're gonna play tambourine. And I had never played tambourine before. And then like all of a sudden I was going to practice every Sunday morning of my life. And now cool. Now I'm in it. It has been so much fun though. It's been an absolute blast. They're fun guys, the Lazy Circles.
And so you joined Mike and I for a little Star Fox 64 multiplayer deathmatch a few weeks ago. And I just was sort of like, I was like, Kristal, you should write a theme song for us. And then like, it was like a day or two later, you have like this amazing first draft. Like, I love it so much. I hum it to myself when I'm like walking around at work. I've like played it at like half speed and 2 times speed. But so how long did it take you to put that together for us?
Oh gosh, I think like, okay, so the the way that I write lyrics is I have a notebook by my bed and I get like real sleepy, like twilight, like half asleep, and I write them down, and then in the morning I kind of like, gosh, how am I telling
Oh, you have to parse them back together, kind of.
No, you do, yeah. So I wrote all the lyrics that night, and then the next morning I woke up at like 6 in the morning or something, and I think that I did. I think that like the next day I had something for you guys that afternoon. So
yeah,
it did not take me very long.
My favorite line is where you say like, I don't know where my genesis would be. And I was like, very clever double meaning. And you're like, oh, was that really accidental? Because I feel like it wasn't. I feel like that was intentionally awesome.
I mean, Young would say that there are no accidents. Um,
Oh, Kristal said.
and so I'm sure that if you caught it and it had meaning to you, then
Are
there
you
must
talking
have
about
been.
Carl Jung, the psychologist, or Neil Young, the songwriter?
Legit question.
I don't know how Neil Young feels about the collective unconscious, Mike. So that is a good question. I don't think I can answer that, but it was Carl. It was the other one. Thank you for clarifying,
Well, I
Mike.
just think
But
it's
yeah,
so cool. I think
thank
it's
you.
twangy. It's like it's kind of charming. It's kind of funny. Like it's just it's chef kiss. Thank you so much for
What do you
making
mean
that for
kind
us.
of?
I mean, it doesn't lean too hard in any one direction. You're not gonna trick me. I'm not gonna even accidentally criticize that thing. So be sure to check out the Lazy Circles on social media to find out, where their next performance is gonna be. Are you guys ready to dive into today's game?
Yes.
Yep.
Games. All right. So let's start off with our first game today, which is going to be Fighters History on the Super Nintendo. The official description on Nintendo Switch Online says, your wildest martial arts dreams come true. In this one-on-one fighting game released for the Super Nintendo console in 1994, elite fighters from around the world have all gathered for one competition. Each has their own reason for fighting, from continuing a family legacy to seeking vengeance. When you enter the heat of combat, you'll want to take full advantage of the weak spot each of your rivals has. Striking your opponent's weak spot will deal damage and momentarily stun them, so the tide of battle can turn at any moment. What do you guys think of that description?
I don't think I ever found out what anybody's reason was for doing any of this.
It's all in the manual, Kristal.
Oh.
Yeah, it does not make it clear. And in fact, even on like the default difficulty, even if you beat the game, it will just
It doesn't say anything.
it says, job, you're getting better. You gotta up the difficulty manually to see the character endings, which kind of annoyed me.
Oh, so that's what was happening is I
Yeah.
was being too easy on myself. I needed to like secretly.
Yeah, but the default is too easy on yourself.
Is it though? I mean, I felt challenged. Maybe that was just me. So here, go ahead. Tell us more, Jeremy. Tell us more.
Okay. Well, we're gonna start off here by looking at the box art. This is the North American and Japanese box art here, and they're more or less identical. You have the final boss of the game sort of looking over the other fighters as they're kind of arranged around him. Kind of has sort of a painterly approach. I like it. I like it for the most part. Mike, what do you think of this box art?
I think to me, it just doesn't grab me because it's got the range of giant head of Karnov here to then
Yes.
fighters in various positions around him. It doesn't feel particularly kinetic. It doesn't really feel unified. It feels cluttered. Like I'd rather you pick a couple characters and try and focus on them. Like if this didn't say fighters history, I would not have the idea that this is really like a fighting game per se. It's just a game with a bunch of people in it, and that's most games.
Yeah, it's not, the layout is a bit jumbled. I was particularly like just confused by, I think her name's Fei Lin, the Chinese martial artist there. I just kind of couldn't see how she was looking over her giant shoulder pad. I felt like it was sort of obscuring her silhouette a bit in a confusing way.
It does have her face is sort of like half hidden,
It's
isn't
half
it?
hidden, but I also feel like she wouldn't turn naturally like that. Like it's almost like she's looking past her.
I mean, yeah, this is kind of what she's doing, right?
Yeah,
That feels natural.
but I feel like her chin is past her shoulder.
I think it's just the shoulder pad.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think no one can see what we're doing right now, but Jeremy, I saw you like try to like strike the same pose.
I've been going to yoga.
And I think you did it. It looked very natural.
It felt natural.
That hot yoga is paying off.
It is, yeah. The only real difference between the Japanese and the North American box art too is that they sort of gave Clown, he's the sub boss of the game there. They kind of gave him like the ugly Sonic treatment by giving him like a full head of teeth. So
I mean, it's not a full head of teeth. It's really just the mouth.
I guess so.
Full head of teeth would be terrifying.
Oh, he looks like a little bird in the other one. I think, okay, so the big head,
Yeah, Karnov's big head.
like Olmec there is the big bad, right?
Yes, he's the final boss.
Yeah, I failed before I got that far. He looks really paternal in this art. You know, like
Kind
I
of,
would have
yeah.
believed that he's a bad man. It looks for to me, because I thought Fighter's history was going to be vaguely like biblical times for some reason.
Okay.
You know, like
Or at least historical. I expected to learn.
well, historical, but it's like Abe Lincoln's not in this, you know. Everyone looks vaguely not like early history.
Is there a fighting game where you can have like a wrestler that is Abe Lincoln?
Probably.
Okay.
No, there is one. And I know he was in Ready to Rumble, which is a boxing game.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely been done. It's funny that you guys mentioned like, oh, I thought I'd learn some history from this game because there's like another fighting game called World Heroes, and that's really fighters history because he plays Rasputin and Joan of Arc and like Genghis Khan, you know.
It's World Heroes, and then Rasputin is the first one that comes up.
Right.
World Heroes.
We've talked about him before.
He's my hero. He was tenacious.
That's just because you like anyone that's a lover of the Russian queen.
He, I mean, he taught us to never give up, Mike. That's what Rasputin's lesson is.
Perseverance.
Yes,
Yeah. So
perseverance.
Fighters History was made by Data East. Mike, they were the makers of the game that you covered on Arcadiology, Joe and Mac Returns, the arcade game.
Yes, they are.
Do you recognize the characters from this game now? Because you first encountered them in Joe and Mac Returns. In that game, you and our friends at Arcadiology were talking about this strange level where you just fought kind of generic Ryu-looking guys. Remember this level?
Yeah, the knockoffs were so they weren't even knockoffs for that game. They were borrowing them from a different game as knockoffs.
Yes. Correct. Yes. This is Mizuguchi, who's in World Heroes. And then also, Mike, do you remember that in one of those levels, you fought a bunch of bald mustachioed guys who breathed fire and could puff up like a ball?
Yeah.
So that's Karnov. So my trivia for the Knowledge is Nintendo Power section is that Karnov is one of Data East's earliest recurring characters.
Is he fighting dinosaurs?
He is. He's fighting dinosaurs in this box art. And
wait, what is he? Is he so he's I'm assuming
he's sort of a god.
Russian?
yes, well, so it depends on the game.
Soviet. He's got Soviet looks, right?
Right. Or sometimes they lean him more towards like Chinese, traditional Chinese looks.
Okay.
It honestly varies from game to game.
Eastern Russia.
Yeah, yes, that's fair to say.
This dude is the Yul Brenner of video games.
Well, he was based on Abdullah the
Oh.
Butcher, who was a Canadian wrestler. The red pants, the curled toes, the baldness, the marking on his forehead. And he has made cameo appearances in a lot of games in addition to Joe and Mac Returns. He was the first boss of Bad Dudes with Attitude. I don't know if you guys remember that game, Bad Dudes with Attitude. I knew that title was going to make Kristal smile. She's all down for the Bad Dudes with Attitude. And he also had his own Tiger Electronics Karnov game.
Whoa, look at those dinosaurs.
This Tiger LCD game was institution at the Strauss house when I was a kid. Did you guys have any of these? Like you just put AA batteries in them, and it was like one background.
Yeah, I think mine was like baseball or something real like unappealing to a young girl. So
Justin had this, and I borrowed it all the time. And sometimes he would say, "No, I can't borrow it," and it broke my heart because it was so cool.
oh God. Was he playing it when he did that, or he just didn't want you to have it?
No, I mean, I think everyone goes through that phase where like it's my toy.
It's important to maintain boundaries.
I was gonna say some people never grow out of it. So Kristal texted me stating that I started one of the games. How is it legal? These are such copies. Kristal, do you know how right you were when you questioned the legality of Fighters history?
I did not at the time, no.
Yeah, but you do now.
See, I should be a lawyer. I've been thinking about that, and it's like this is just proof that I have the instinct.
So when you guys want to fill our listeners in on what you're talking about?
Me?
Oh, I thought you figured it out. Like I thought you knew the story of this game.
No, I just read about it. Okay, actually, so I did read about this on the internet today, and I found out I was right, and I felt real proud of myself. I guess they did get sued by the guys who made Street Fighter because of copyright.
Yeah, Capcom versus Data East.
But it means that I learned about something new
Yeah.
today. The reason that the lawsuit got thrown out was a French thing called a Jeremy. Will either of you know if I'm mispronouncing this and be able to correct me? Who's this Poindexter?
Oh, this is the judge who ruled in that case in 1984, Judge William H.
Okay.
Orick,
Okay.
whose legal opinion was based on the French thing. Go ahead, go for it, Kristal. I think I know how to say it.
Yeah.
You do it.
Is it seen? It's the little accents. It's seen affaire. Is it
I
that?
say never. Ooh, I think I just faked my way into that.
That's seen affaire. But
Kristal, what
I
is never?
A scene affaire is a scene in a book or film which is almost obligatory for a book or film in that genre. So, like, if you have like a noir, you have to have like a sexy lady under a streetlight, like smoking a cigarette. You need to have like a detective because if you're gonna make a noir, like there's things that have become so like synced and so symbolic of certain genres that if you had something within that genre and you didn't have these like things, then it wouldn't really be in that genre, which is such a trippy idea.
Yeah.
Because you think about the boundlessness of human thought and creativity, and then there's these things that we share so closely that it becomes like copyright law.
Yeah. It's like I've watched a frighteningly large number of old westerns that all involve the good guy everyone thinks is a bad guy, but really he's trying to stop the richest person in town who's trying to buy up everything because the railroad's coming.
There's always one richest person in town in those things, isn't there? Like there's never two. There's never like rich people fighting.
But what's amazing me,
One.
Kristal, about what you learned there is that like Street Fighter 2 had only come out like a year or two before, and that really
Mhm.
kind of cemented what this genre would be.
Yeah, like they said it.
Right. And it's just so quickly like, okay, that the game was so good that that's just the standard now. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, but and I think they probably overreached. I think they're like, oh, look at the life bars, look at the timer. You know what I mean? Like, I
Hmm.
feel like they must have tried to claim that so much was their intellectual property that the judge was just like, nah, and it kind of backfired.
They're right about those life bars though. Like the life bar felt like the gratuitously you didn't even bother to change your answer, did you?
Right. Yeah.
But it's not just that. It wasn't just like the individual elements, like the camera. The camera is exact, you know? And
That's
the
Street Fighter 2.
background and the ratio of the background to like the characters and the way that they move within the scene is it's exact. Oh, I liked that. I liked the little White House. That like rad dude was an American.
Ray, the rad dude. So what's
Yeah.
interesting though about that lawsuit is that as Crystal is alluding to, Data East won and Capcom lost. And what's interesting is that the judge, William Orick Jr., used the legal precedent in a previous lawsuit that Data East lost. So Data East created Karate Champ on the left and had to sue Epics Incorporated over their game World Karate Champ. And it was essentially the identical case. And so Data
Mhm.
East lost that one, but won the one against Capcom.
So they learned.
Yeah, well, they did, I guess.
They
Yeah.
did. They learned
Yeah.
a lesson that day, and it might not have been the lesson that we all thought that they would.
Well, and what's weird though is that there's actually this strange pattern of video game and very important video game lawsuits where it's won by the one side getting sort of hoisted by their own petard.
Mhm.
I'll hint towards my Donkey Kong episode coming up with John Kirby and how he defended Nintendo from Universal. We haven't gotten to that yet, but it's going to
Okay.
circle back around to this.
This guy's the lawyer here.
This is John Kirby. This is who Kirby is named after. That what? The
What?
pink
He
guy.
does have a big round face, doesn't
No, no,
he?
it was just the name, Crystal. Stop dishonoring this.
I'm not dishonoring. There's nothing wrong with having a big round face.
So this legal case that Data
It's got a big round head.
East, you're right. You know what? I'm trying to act better than any. Mike, do you want to talk about the manual? Because I think you're going to mention this hotline ad in the back, right?
Whoa.
I mean, I was going to bring up this whole thing to it is so as an interesting choice in the fighter's history manual. I don't get to surprise you with it, but I'm glad you have this. The tip line is advertised in the back of this manual by showing a page of classifieds.
Yeah.
And there's so much I appreciate about this.
It's a bunch of little references to other famous video games.
Well, before we even get to that, so you have categories of personals and video game tip lines and announcements and lost and found. And just right off the bat, I enjoy that the video game tip lines column, they've circled their own for, was this 85 cents a minute. But then if you look at the ones next to it, like the one above it, Video Wizards,
the personal ad
is $15, and the one below it is this whole other is Psychic Advisors at $30 a minute. So they basically created fake ideas that wizards and psychics would help you with video games for ridiculous prices. So you're getting the bargain of 85 cents a minute. And I love that it wasn't just here's the service, it's they created fake services. But then all the rest of these have references. The weird one that I wrote down is in the announcements, we won. Fighter's History debuts this summer after a lengthy court battle. Fighting game fans rejoice. But then if you even go to the personals, you get like the first personal, cave dude looking for hot cave babe, must be able to hunt and gather, has to be Joe and Mac.
Right.
But then this goes beyond things that they actually had, I think.
Yeah, there's like a Mario reference, which is not a Data East franchise.
Yeah. Where's my princess looking for two something blonde?
2-inch. That'd be
Is it
2-inch.
I think so. Yeah, looking for 2-inch blonde with super personality, must like short Italian types. Call pound 34.
What game is straight shooter looking for a trick shot? That's
a pool game. We're gonna play it, actually.
It's a real game?
Do these numbers actually correspond to anything that you're aware of?
I don't know.
Okay.
So if you're just listening on YouTube, you can check out the video and see all these cool little classified ads. They had a good sense of humor about it.
Yeah, I'll be putting in the show notes also links to the manuals that I'm using.
Great.
So you can check those out and go through all of these. There's even there's a Lost in Space reference. I do enjoy one of the others in the Lost and Found was found home at Data East. Call Ravi with congrats. And he is one of the employees.
That's funny.
He is listed in the credits of the manual just as one of the credits for Data East. It doesn't quite say what he did, so I just presume all 5 people there worked on the manual. And I think that just means he's like the newest hire, and they decided to put him in there. It was a great little touch for otherwise interesting manual, but I like that they did this for this was a lot of Easter eggs put in to just advertise their helpline.
And on the back of a manual that you would never see digitally. So it's like it really is a relic. It's something you just don't get anymore. Little secrets in the instruction manual. Can we start talking about what we liked about the game, the Joy Pros?
All right.
If I can start off, I think the game looks nice. So I know it looks way too much like Street Fighter 2, but there's a lot of, original drawings and animation that I think is really good. I think the characters are big. I think that the, game over screens and the character selects are really detailedly drawn, just like they did in Street Fighter 2. But this was still a quality looking game. And I don't know, it charmed me. I know it shouldn't on principle. I liked the way that this game sounded. I liked that the announcer said each character. I like the crazy way they pronounce their moves, the Balaros and
I mean, the fact that the knockoff Ryu's knockoff Hadouken is baked potato.
No, he's saying Tiger Bazooka.
It sounds like baked potato to me. I 100% presume it's baked potato.
I don't know though. Did you guys like how this game looked? Like if you can separate the plagiarism.
No, I really liked the backgrounds. I separate the plagiarism. I think honestly,
I mean, that's a building they stole.
That they stole?
Yeah, the White House.
They ripped off the White
House.
Yeah.
What?
They didn't
He's
come up
being
with the
silly.
White House. The White House already existed.
Oh gosh. All
Lazy.
right. So
Lazy.
I thought that I like Street Fighter, and I think Street Fighter is a beautiful game, but definitely like the extra, because this was a year or so after
Yeah.
Street Fighter came out, you said?
Street Fighter 2, yeah.
Yeah, Street Fighter 2, I'm sorry. They took such care with the backgrounds on this. Like they're beautiful. They're like the tones are really like what's the word I'm looking for?
They're vibrant.
They are vibrant. Yeah, no, it's very like the backgrounds are really lovely to look at. I think in Street Fighter 2, they were a little more concerned with like character almost.
Yeah.
Like the people that were in the background and like funny scenes going on. And this just made them be in like a really beautiful places. Like look at that. That looks like a Mario Kart stage or something.
Yeah.
You also have things off to the sides that if someone gets hit into get destroyed, which I don't. Is that a did Street Fighter 2 have that as well?
It's more fleshed out here. In Street Fighter 2, it's like crates and barrels, I think, pretty much exclusively. And this one, like, you'll break signs and you'll like sort of damage the architecture of the level. It's a nice touch, and I love any little detail that makes me feel like I'm more in the place I'm fighting. And I liked the break weak point system. So the one innovation this game has over Street Fighter 2 is that each character has a weak spot. It's either on their head, on their torso, or at the on their legs. And so if you hit that character in that spot enough times, it'll start to flash. And that's basically the warning that if you get hit in that spot one more time, you'll be stunned. And that's once again ripped off of Street Fighter with like the little birds flying around your head. And for a few seconds, you can't do anything. But in Street Fighter, at this point in the game's development, you didn't have a warning that you were about to get stunned. And so Mike and I were playing before, and I beat him this time. He didn't get me as badly as he did with Street Fighter 2. It was pretty
I'm
close.
proud of you, Jeremy.
Thank you. I've grown enough.
You've grown.
Yeah, I have.
You've grown as a person in so many ways.
It was tense. It was tense. But so there was a moment where we learned, like, okay, Mike's weak spot was flashing, but then he got a couple good combos on me, and his weak spot stopped flashing. So in other words, he played defensively enough to get out of that window of vulnerability. It's not a great system. Like, I mean, the characters who have weak spots in their legs are a lot more vulnerable because you play footsies a lot in this game. So you're hitting their legs a lot to knock them over. But I don't know. Did you guys like the weak spot system?
I didn't notice that that's what was happening. I mean, I'm a button masher. Sometimes
That's
I
right.
get like yeah, sometimes I get excited and I figure out how to do like one thing, but that's not what this was. I'm pretty sure there were a couple times I was stunned and I didn't even notice that there was like a warning system. I didn't notice I was hitting anybody and they were doing anything weird. Like if it was for the lay player, it was a very subtle system, so it didn't really even like I didn't clock it at all that it was even happening.
It does help, like the manual lists what the weak spots are for everyone.
Well, Mike, we didn't all read the manual now, did
I know.
we?
That's why I'm here to let you know what it said.
And it shows.
So the other cool thing about it, though, is that like if you knock off the character's headband, like now their hair is all messy, or if you knock off like their leg armor, then now like their pants are tattered. It's just a little extra detail of like, okay, my character looks kind of roughed up.
Yeah.
And I liked it. I also thought the boss characters were really wild. So we got Karnov, who we talked about before, kind of the Data East mascot. And I loved Clown and Clown Stage. It's this really wild, sort of surrealist dreamscape where there's like a door that goes nowhere and there's this beautiful woman's face in the clouds and strange performers. It's totally surreal in a way that Street Fighter never let itself go like this wild, you know?
It's really Kirby-esque.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it has like a fancifulness, the same kind of weirdness.
Yeah. Mike, was there anything that you liked about the game that we didn't get to already?
The other thing I'd add with the backgrounds is for at least a couple that there's sort of extra things going on in the background. I mean, the big one is Ryoko's that has like is more like a Buddhist temple kind of look, and you've got a cat going back and forth out the back door and someone right behind it.
Like polishing the wood. Yeah, there's fun movement.
Because you can have little kitty cat prints on there.
I'm so happy you guys like the backgrounds because I thought we were gonna vibe on this. So I made a quick little mini game minute.
Oh
So-
no. Okay.
No,
Okay.
you're gonna like this, Kristal. You're gonna like this one.
Okay.
So Karnov is the titular, well, not titular until the sequel. The sequel that's called Karnov's Revenge, which I also downloaded on the Switch, $7.99 on the eShop. And you think we're getting money from them, but we're not.
It's the opposite.
So Karnov is the one who's he's challenging all these different fighters, or he can go visit them, right? So Karnov is traveling around the world to fight different people. So we're gonna play Where in the World is Karnov's Winnebago? So in this game, you guys are gonna have 60 seconds to identify the country that Karnov is visiting in the background.
Oh boy.
And then the other part is that you got to know which flag to put there. Ready?
Yeah.
So start talking your way through it. For our listeners, there's four backgrounds from this game and 4 flags on the screen. You have 60 seconds on the clock. Go.
The chandeliers and the pretty ladies are totally France,
You
right?
agree, Mike?
Yeah, because that's our Versailles one.
And I don't know what any of the other flags are.
So then the other flags we
like-
have are Thailand, Russia, and I kind of want to.
Okay, so the boats. Wait, there's Thailand. Mike is the first one. It looks
Thailand
like Italy.
is the third flag down.
The third flag is the first flag with the green. Is that Italian?
No, that'd be vertical. I think it may be Hungary.
Hungary. One of these guys are from Hungary. How long do we have, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Okay, the
3
one
more
with the
seconds
boats
to
is
discuss.
Thailand. The one with the boats is Thailand.
Yeah, the one with the boats.
Yeah. So
Is Thailand.
boats are Thailand. Pretty ladies is France. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And those, look at those mermaids. No,
The bottom right
horses?
one that's a desert one, I think, is a Central Asia thing because that's also Karnov's level in the game.
The horses look like the horse mermaids look like if Hungary is an option. That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kristal wants to put the Hungarian flag on the statues with the horse mermaids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the Thai flag is with the boats on the river. Is that a river? Yeah. And I don't know what this other flag is.
It's Russia.
So you good with this?
Oh, it is? Oh,
Final
maybe the
answers?
Russians have
Yeah.
mermaids. Is it hot in Hungary? No, it's cold there.
You know what's hot though? You guys on this game. You got 100%. Nice work, you guys.
Ah, neat.
Oh, Mike got so competitive. He was that was fun. Thank you guys. Anything else to say in joy praise of fighters history?
I thought Jean was cool.
The better rose. He throws roses at you.
I think this predicted Jean-Claude Van Damme playing Guile.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
that's a good call.
but he wasn't Guile-esque. It seemed like who he was really like supposed if they were gonna copy Street Fighter 2, he seemed much closer to Fellow with the Claws.
Vega.
Vega. Yeah, he was much more Vega-esque than Guile.
It was like Guile in gameplay. What is it? He had Guile's Sonic Boom, Vega's like
Mhm.
swagger, and E Honda's 100
Yeah.
hand slap.
Yeah. The perfect man. He was the perfect man.
In your mind, the perfect man has the 100-hand slap.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, Mike, you have much to learn about women.
I was just say as a side bit on other characters that seemed oddly inspired with things is the backstory on Lee having like a father character that had died, and it's some like there was a weird Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee vibe in that story to me.
Blech.
Okay, I could see that. Yeah.
Brandon Lee hadn't died yet, though, right?
No, I mean Lee in the game hasn't died yet either.
And that's a trope, but I could see that being a connection. So did you guys have a favorite character?
Just as far as characters, and both of these have a similar kind of character with Matlock, the English punk rocker.
Yes.
Mhm. Oh, I liked him.
If he had a movie, I would own that movie.
Because of his backstory being so wild.
Yeah, it's just that it feels right in line for that. So I mean, I think as far as in looks, that in gameplay, maybe was it Sanche?
Yeah, the Thai boxer.
The Thai boxer, at least playing against the computer, you could get in close, and he had really good reach.
Okay. So you kind of vibed with him and his like long kicks.
I succeeded the most with him.
Wait, is that the dude with the earring?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not like him. He
He's
was
really tough.
So Jeremy, earlier when we were playing, Jeremy has never heard the term rode hard and put away wet. And he thought I was cursing, but I wasn't. But I wasn't. And that's what he looks like to me. He looks like he's been through a lot. He looks like he doesn't use sunscreen, I'm gonna say. Like that's what I thought about him.
Oh, it's like a trail term. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, like cowboys.
Right. Okay. I
Yeah.
just figured out the frontiersman kind of aspect of it.
There you go.
I got a couple things to say, Joy Cons, if we're ready to criticize this game.
Before we get into criticizing this game, how did we each do with this game?
Ah, that's a good question, Mike. Did you beat it?
Sort of.
Explain.
So I'm aware that to get the credits, you had to beat this on hard, and to get a special bonus thing after the credits, or both. I don't know how that works. I didn't play this on hardest, but I know that there's additional stuff on hardest.
You rolled credits.
No, I did not. I reached the "you've beaten the game" screen, but it doesn't give you, like, the credits had to be an extra level up.
Oh, what do you say, Kristal? I think he beat the last boss. It doesn't matter the difficulty. He beat the last boss.
Yeah, no, you get to the end of the game. That counts.
Mike, NintenDON'T.
Don't sell yourself short, Mike.
Family computer.
Kristal, did you beat this game?
No, I did not beat this game. I had fun though.
Yeah, I did too.
Everyone
I
seemed-
did, and I Nintendo beat it.
Family computer.
What difficulty level did you beat it on?
I beat it a couple of times. I beat it twice with the default one, which does not get you the credit sequence, and then I beat it 2 or 3 times with the harder difficulty to see the character endings.
Okay.
Yeah, I took to this game. I beat it like 5 times, and I bought the sequel. I think I'm a Fighter's History fan, you guys. And I mean, I will get to our verdict at the end of the episode, but I mean, you know, if you guys liked it like I did, you should come over and play the sequel because it's not online play.
And that's the man with the pants, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
Karnov's Revenge.
Yes.
This game, though, has a lot that I can criticize if you guys are ready for that.
Yeah.
Should I feel like being negative, Jeremy? Let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, it's offensively unoriginal. You know, you covered that a bit already, Kristal, but you're like, the ratio, the music, the life bar, it's just such blatant plagiarism that you almost wonder if, you know, that John Orrick or the judge, I mean, like, if he ruled wrong. It feels gross to like this game because I'm such a Street Fighter fan, and they just robbed them blind of their. Actually, the lawsuit happened because they found that Street Fighter was mentioned in the development documents. So, like, you know, in official documents, they wrote that down, and they're like, we'll see you in court.
That is a really bold move. It's like,
Yeah.
What's the pitch for the game? You're familiar with Street Fighter, right? It's like, yeah, we're basically going to make that and not tell them.
Yeah.
It almost makes you wonder why they didn't just like approach them to, like, if they had these ideas, they could have, like, I don't know, worked on one with them. This would have made a really cool Street Fighter game, you know? I would have really, the things that it improves upon from Street Fighter 2 makes it really interesting in a lot of ways.
I totally agree.
I think the issue there is that you have to share money.
Yeah, that's always the rub, isn't it?
Yeah.
Capitalism is keeping us from this, like, Fighter's History and Street Fighter 2, like, holy union.
We could have had Street Fighter's history.
We could have had dude, we could have, Mike. We could have.
This game's not as responsive as Street Fighter. I don't think the moves feel as natural. And then, like, I don't think the characters are as good as Street Fighter 2. And so it sort of feels like it's like a we have Street Fighter at home kind of thing. This isn't as good as Street Fighter 2. So it's kind of hard to recommend it if you have access to that other game. Because, like, Street Fighter 2, but just not as iconic. But I don't know. I didn't have a ton to say that was negative because I kind of liked it. How about you guys?
I thought it was fun.
Right? It's kind of fun. I'm so glad you said so.
Yeah, the mythology, because I did not have the manual. The mythology was just, like, non-existent.
Yeah.
You know, so the character design was cool, but you never really, like, figured out, like, what there was to like about anybody. And in Street Fighter 2, that was one of their major strengths, is the mythology was deep enough that they were able to make a whole movie out of it. You know, they couldn't have done that with this. There would have been no way And I get that manuals were a little different back then because that was kind of like, funny enough, the only like copyright system they really had, you
Right.
know, was like pirated copies of games wouldn't have the manual in them. Like I think it was Zork, right? There was a Zork game, it might have been Return to Zork, where you couldn't go past a certain point in the game because there was a password that you needed in game, and the only way you knew what the password was is if you had the paper manual. It wasn't printed anywhere online, it wasn't in the game anywhere, and so if you did not have like the manual, the game like bricked halfway through.
Can I do you one better? We're going to play a
Yeah.
game for this podcast called Star Tropics. And in that game, you had to dip the manual in lemon juice because the ink would react and it would expose.
Just water.
Uh,
I watched a YouTube video literally in the last 48 hours of someone doing this.
okay.
But was it supposed to just be lemon juice? Like, did they tell them lemon juice?
I thought they told them lemon juice, but I could be wrong.
Because because I would have believed it. Like, if the game people, the game creators.
The instructions were water.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I thought I was really cool with my nerd fact, and Mike's like, actually, you're an idiot.
I mean, it does mean, okay, so, but like, if you saw the video, maybe you'll know this, Mike. Did it, once it was dry, did it stay or did it disappear once it was dry?
The guy that was doing it talked about it, but he didn't indicate. I presume it would stay there, but I'm not sure.
Because I would hope that this is something that you would be able to use more than once.
Yeah.
You know, it would be kind of a bummer if it was like, here's your disappearing ink. It's disappeared forever. I hope you remember what it said for the rest of your natural life.
This was appearing ink. It's the opposite situation.
It disappeared first, though.
Yeah, it
I
did.
guess.
It did disappear,
That's
and
true.
then it appeared. Have you used disappearing ink before, Jeremy?
No, I was always scared it wouldn't actually like go away.
Oh, I actually, funny enough, this might be why you thought lemon juice. I used to do that with lemon juice because you could write a message with lemon juice and it'd be invisible, if I'm remembering correctly, and then you put it in the sun, and the sun would make the lemon juice dark, and that was like how you got the hidden message. So that was like appearing ink.
Back to Fighter's history. Anything else to say in criticism of the game?
No, I thought it was a fun time.
I thought as much as a Street Fighter ripoff, I was prepared to hate it. I liked it.
If anything, you like Street Fighter 2. You should like a thing that is basically Street Fighter 2.
That's a good
Right,
point,
yeah.
Mike. It's a good
Yeah.
point.
Like, you're their target demographic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's move on to our second game of the night, which is Doomsday Warrior on the Super Nintendo, released in 1992. We're going to read the official description from Nintendo Switch's online catalog. It says it's the Doomsday Warrior versus the Doom Squad. This action game was released for the Super NES in console in 1993 and features an evil sorcerer who has recruited 7 warriors to take over Earth. But one of the Doom Squad has resisted the influence and now stands against the rest as the Doomsday Warrior. In the single-player mode, each victory lets you assign bonus points to different stats to upgrade your warrior, and then you can use those characters in versus mode. So, everyone's first impression was often the box as it sat on the store shelves. So we're going to look at the Japanese box art here first because it was released first. Kristal, you want to describe what we're looking at?
Yeah, it's like a vaguely like Dragon Ball-esque anime scene with who have we got here? We've got an American man who you can tell because he's blonde.
Ledge.
Yes, is that who that is? That's Ledge. There's like a heavy metal dude
Amon.
who looks like a Lucha Libre fighter. There's someone who does not look like a plant at all. That's Daisy. And there's like a dragon. I think I already talked, if I didn't, I talked about the dragon. And then like behind these like cartoon characters that look kind of goofy. And is the metal guy like giving the middle finger?
Is. That's part of why they had to be redrawn for North America. He is full on flipping off the customer.
Yes. That is the bird. That
It
is
is the bird.
The bird.
I thought he's just pointing at Palpatine back there.
He kind of looks like he's like trying to stick his finger in his mouth. Yeah. Yeah. So like in the foreground are like this cast of characters, and then in the back, it's like Mufasa back there.
It's the antagonist of the game sort of looming over you in cloud form.
He looked like Mufasa, yeah.
Remember Maine?
Yeah.
He's back in cloud form.
He looks kind of nice though. He kind of like has a John Ritter kind of look to him.
Kind of has a benevolent vibe, kind of like Karnov did.
Yeah, he's smiling.
Yeah.
He's got bangs. I trust him. I trust him more than any of these guys.
So, Mike, you want to describe the North American box art for us?
Whoa.
Yeah, so much more kinetic, where we have Sledge kicking one person
That's Laban.
and then punching Amon at the same time. Meanwhile, in the background, for no reason, is Plump
Elam.
blowing fire.
Yeah. And, they're kind of floating above the cityscapes. So it sort of has this implied anti-gravity, which has slight moments in this game, but it's kind of a perspective issue. But P-Lump in the background breathing fire, how big is he, or how small is that building? Because it legit looks like his body is going to cover half the rooftop if he laid down.
He's Plump. That makes sense. He's a big,
But huge.
big guy.
I stand by my pronunciation on that.
Well, I don't have the manual to this one either, Mike, so there's no way for me to know. I am digging Amon though, like, because he's getting like punched out of the scene really, and he's got like Bruce Springsteen tight like blue jeans on. Over that, he has like some kind of like armored knee-high, calf-high boot. That isn't leather. It's not leather. That is
No.
like chrome.
It's like steel.
They are,
yeah.
yeah, they're like gauntlets or something over his blue jeans.
I think those are greaves.
Greaves, good word, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's got greaves on over blue jeans, and the greaves have like spiked anklets, like a dog collar, like a big spiked dog collar, but they're cute little anklets over his greave boots. And then his shoulders, like he has these like skull shoulder pads, but they're like the skull of a walrus or something. Like what? Can you guys tell? Like what?
This is like what parents thought Hot Topic sold.
I swear, like I've seen this guy at the goth clubs. Like he would be
Mhm.
very popular, I feel like, in real life.
And his backstory is rock and roll wrestler, which is, again, I would own that movie. That gets weirdly close to movies I own.
He very much has like a juggalo
Yes.
before juggalos, like backyard wrestling vibe. I dig his vibe a lot, especially this picture, because it's that you can really see the detail in his like cool metal gear.
It's a pretty striking image. I think my biggest issue with it is that showing Sledge here fighting two guys at once, it kind of implies there's going to be like a brawler. I don't get one-on-one fighter from this. I get like, oh, I play as the guy in the center and I, just beat up the guys on the left and the right. So a little misleading, but that could be me being a bit nitpicky. I like it overall. It's super like early 90s, late 80s
I think this is definitely a lot better,
than the anime one.
and just a lot better than Fighter's History. Like, I really clearly get this is punching and kicking people out of this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Doomsday Warrior was developed by Lasersoft, who ported the columns to the Sega Genesis. Mike, if you remember columns, we're going to cover it, I think, for this podcast.
Whoa.
Yes.
And we'll also meet Renovation Products. They were the publisher when we cover high fantasy action game Super Valis 4. Now, Kristal, I don't know anything about this game, but I know when you see this cover, you're going to want to be on this episode. Look at the magazine ad for Super Valis 4. Isn't
wow, look at her.
She's an Amazon woman fighting a fire-breathing tiger who's being ridden by some kind of cyber knight, and it says a full moon means only one thing.
It means evil is on its way. That is a very, like, I feel like the Instagram astrology girlies
King Gallagher.
wouldn't like that. Gallagher.
There better be
Fairly-
watermelon in this.
No,
We'll find out,
sir.
Mike. It's coming.
Gosh. This is Fun time. Sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
No, it is fun times. I agree. So for Doomsday Warrior, I couldn't really find a whole lot of trivia. The one thing I found was that, the antagonist, the main antagonist, whose name is Maine, like, try harder, but he was described as a vengeful angel in the Japanese game, and they changed that to vengeful sorcerer to avoid biblical
Mhm.
controversy. But one of the sub bosses is named Asura, which is just an asura. It's just a figure from Buddhism. It's a demigod who got kicked out of the heavens for drunken behavior. So I was just like, well, that's kind of weird. Like you remove the religion from one aspect of the game, but
Mhm.
as long as it's not Christianity, like you're good.
They get weird about one religion in America and not all of them necessarily.
That's
Yeah, I
very
mean,
true.
until Castlevania was the first one I can think of where they just like went full on with the Christian imagery. Before that, yeah, no, it wasn't really, I think people they were kind of spooked by it. We needed the vampires to make it okay. And this game reminded me a lot of Castlevania, the backgrounds and how they were like all like really ominous and they had those creepy clouds and stuff in the background. This game definitely compared to Street Fighter and compared to Fighter's History, this was way more goth.
Yeah, yeah, exceedingly so.
Yeah, it was a very goth game.
It made me wish that there were more types of backgrounds because traditionally in a fighting game, each character has their own stage. Not this one. You get like the same three or four that just get recycled. And so, like what you guys are looking at here, this is the boss stage. You fight all three bosses at the same sort of ruins, and then you fight people in like my favorite stage is this one. It's like you're fighting on the side of a skyscraper, and so it's this. Mike just tilted his head, but yeah, it's this fun sort of head tilting moment.
Oh,
Why are we walking this way?
Yeah, was that a Batman reference, Mike?
It is a Clerks the cartoon
Clerks.
reference to Batman.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, exactly. But I like this. It's just like, okay, someone had a good day when they thought of this as a fighting game stage. Take everything else away from this game. This is a cool stage, cool background. And also, the characters, I thought they had some imagination to them. Grimrock, the dragon, and then New Form. He's the sentient blob of green goo.
he was weird.
Yeah, but this game predates Clay Fighter by a couple years. So this whole like green blob you control in a fighting game, Clay Fighter kind of owes something to Doomsday Warrior, I would argue.
I was thinking a bit more like the Alex Mack Terminator realm.
Yeah, yeah. The sort of living Mercury.
It was very Alex Mack, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Although
Yes.
I did find it weird that when that wins, it like holds up a fan with like a Japanese flag on it or something.
I was wondering if there was some significance to that.
I mean, probably.
And if he's like a gelatinous like blob like that, where did he keep that flag?
Well, I think he kind of creates it from his goo, doesn't he?
Oh, but it's like a different color.
It's white.
And all of his various like things he does are just his green like motif. And his flag is it's white and it's red. It's a Japanese flag. He had to like have stuck that somewhere.
I like to imagine that the other fighter sees it floating around inside his gelatinous body. He's like, "What's that flag for?" And then you lose to him, and he holds up. I was like, "Oh, that's what it's for."
It's like when you see Jello with like fruit in it.
Yeah, exactly. I like the throw mechanic in this game. Every character has a throw move, and when you pull it off, the game like freezes for a split second, and all the heads up display of the game disappears, and anime manga action lines go, and you knock people off the ceiling or against the wall or like all the way away. It was overused maybe, but it was kind of epic.
No, the hammer comes down.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
the hit has a good like thump to it.
Well, I couldn't figure it because again, I don't usually know like what I'm doing on purpose, but I couldn't figure out how I was doing it. And so all of a sudden, like things would pause for a second and I would think I had done something wrong. And then all of this like glorious like hellfire would like kind of rain down. Because I was playing mostly Grimrock. Is that who he is?
Yes.
Yeah, the lizard.
Yes, the lizard. And he like jumps up in the air and then there's just like I don't even know what you would call it. It's like a hailstorm and with like lightning and fire and he's just like kind of hovering above these guys.
Yeah.
Giving them the business, and it's really, really exciting. And it was always a surprise every single time.
Yeah, because the game, and we'll get to the Joy-Cons, but the game doesn't control that well, so you can't really do anything with much intent or.
Yeah, gotta let go and let God. Yeah.
I saw some stuff saying that also when playing the computer gets like, if you're both within the right range to do those, like the computer gets to do so first.
Yeah.
Which is why I basically just played this game as Daisy at some point. Is it turns out that Daisy has one of her throws that can be further away. So I could be slightly further out, and then it wasn't, and I could just rely on that.
Spoken like a true scientist, Mike.
But what I found sort of interesting, though, is that because the throw moves do so much more damage than any of the other attacks, it sort of became a different kind of game in my mind. It was almost like a wrestling game where you're sort of doing little attacks, trying to wait for an opening to get close and do the really big damaging one. So I might be giving the game a bit too much credit, but I thought that it was such an essential part. If you wanted these matches to go by with any sort of speed, you'd have to do these big throw damaging attacks. And I don't know. I liked it a little.
I think if it was going to do that, it would have had to have. It feels then very unbalanced that certain characters have the ranged attacks.
Yeah.
That just throw off the balance.
The damage ratio, it was difficult for some people. It just like their hits were weighted because they were further away, or they were able to hit from further away. It just had a lot more weight, and sometimes it just felt like you were doing the same move over and over again for just like hitting them just like a tiny little bit, and it did make you a little crazy.
If those ones were not good close up, I think it would have been balanced. But instead, because I'd started with Amon because he's the coolest, and to get close enough in to do damage, I was getting wrecked at a distance and then wrecked close up, and it's like, this is not. Neither of these is working.
Yeah. In the game over screen, Jeremy has it up, and if you decide that you don't want to play anymore, you have to say, I give up, I'm sorry. You have to apologize to who is this man that we're apologizing to?
Not this man, this Maine.
This Maine.
His name is Maine. His name is Maine.
Like, you have to tell him, I'm sorry. Like, you have to apologize to him for losing.
This game over screen cracks me up because not only does it have the weird forced apology, it also has not one but two comma splices. I'm an English teacher, so I have to point it out. And I love that, like, they sort of ran out of room on the top line. You better give up for your own good, and your own good is like the line below it, but like crammed at the end, like they're writing a greeting card and they ran out of room.
Yeah, it's not justified.
And then at the bottom of the screen, there's like little toy versions of Sledge and Laban, just like, I don't even know what they're doing down there. They're just like smacking each other around.
Yeah, fighting, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like,
I don't know why.
But they're not recreating the.
That's why it's confusing, because it's like, am I apologizing to this other guy? Because the screen at the bottom where they're doing their little like friendship talk, it looks like I'm apologizing to him. But then at the top of the screen is this big scary man. So like, not only do I have to apologize when I'm not sorry, I don't even.
The bottom bit, because it starts off with them approaching and they are like punching and kicking and stuff. It just makes me think of the Simpsons thing where it's Bart and Lisa of, I'm going to walk out and I'm going to be swinging like this. And if you get in the way, it's your own fault. It's like, well, fine, but I'm going to kick air like this. And if you get kicked, it's your own fault.
Was there ever in the like zillion Simpsons video games that were like created, was there ever one where you like got to reenact that fight?
Did they attack?
Yeah, like was there one where those attacks were like something that you could do?
There was a Simpsons wrestling game that's infamously bad, but I don't think you could play as Bart nor Lisa. I think it was purely the adults. Yeah.
That's disappointing.
That is disappointing.
Speaking of disappointing, let's get into the Joy-Cons of this game.
There's one other bit I wanted to mention, general game stuff, which was the way that this gives sort of backgrounds to the characters was fascinatingly odd to me. So first of all, I've already talked about what happens when you just decide to rip off Street Fighter. Straight up, 3 different characters here have bios that talk about their abilities to beat up or not beat up cars. Because Slade apparently can beat up a car, and makes fun of Layden for the fact that he can't. And then in the Layden thing, it mentions that he can't like punch the engine out of a car. And then Grimrock apparently can also use claws to slash up cars. And it's just like, I don't think that there was that much can you beat up a car talk going on outside of Street Fighter and Street Fighter adjacent discussions.
I mean, in the seedy belly of the underworld, Mike, that's the measure of a man, whether or not you can beat up a car.
But Slade has nothing to prove because he's also a professional athlete in 4 different sports.
But he can't beat up a car.
Didn't they address this in the manual, though? I thought the manual mentioned that there was like this apocalyptic event and now there's a bunch of empty cars everywhere. Wasn't that in the story?
I think it does talk about parking lots and the junkyards, I guess, but it's still not exactly plot relevant there.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't understand. Like, you bring up sort of like what the manual explains to the premise for this. I honestly don't understand exactly what's intentional and how that describes this and what isn't, because it's confusing to me. Because I think it mentions both the implications that there's like mind control going on here, or he's recruited people, and I'm not sure which of those is the case, because it's like, oh, he's recruited people, but one of them has resisted that, and that implies this isn't really a conscious choice to it.
The spooky guy?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if that has to do with the original version being eventual angel, because I feel like biblically, didn't angels have like influence like wherever they went or something like that? It was like a
possibly.
I could be making this up, but
I think angels were just so scary that like you did what they told you to because you were like quaking in fear.
Just the whole thing, like it sets up like this whole all these levels of disaster of junkyards and polluted water and everything. It's like the whole thing with just feeling badly constructed, but seeming like it's trying to have a message. It feels like Birdemic if Birdemic was being caused by the eco villains from Captive Planet, in just this weird way. Like, we have this strange team of people that somehow are tied to environment going bad, but we're not really sure how.
So you thought this was an ecological tale?
Partially, but not well.
I mean, this was the time. This was when like Ranger Rick was really big. It's when we thought we had time to fix it.
There was hope still.
There was hope still. There was hope that we weren't going to be like living on like garbage islands in the Pacific Ocean.
Is it a little scary to you guys that they make this game Doomsday Warrior in the early 90s and we're like, yeah, that's basically a year away. Like it's gotten that bad since this game was made. It's not really cute anymore.
To be fair, the acid rain concerns have dropped off a little bit. So
that's true.
Some bits are going better.
For now.
It's like weird things where it's like, oh, these new plants showed up, but it turns out they drain all nutrition in the soil from within 50 miles. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
That's in this game?
Yes.
That's very complicated.
That's
a complicated concept for a video game of this caliber. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so there's all this thrown in there. And I'm just like, I don't really know what we're going with here, but okay.
This is dark.
Yeah. And it doesn't explain who's resisting, which I presume is so that you can pick any one of them, and it turns out that that's the good one. But I'm honestly not sure, because I think Slade Sledge, isn't his title like
Sledge
Earth Hero or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yes.
So like, I don't know if it's meant to be him, but you can play as other characters, or if you are allowed to have like 6 out of 7 cases be Earth Hero is a bad guy.
So like, you think that like the lizard dude and like the gooey guy are supposed to be like, what's what I'm thinking, like mutants? Like, if we're taking this like ecological story.
You say that, there is someone in the credits for this game listed as mutant design.
See, yeah. that's putting this in a new light, because it kind of had like almost like a high fantasy vibe.
Yeah, I think Grimrock is technically supposed to have come to Earth with Maine, or been brought to Earth by Maine. So I think that is Grimrock is alien, but
okay.
The other one, yeah, I think you're open to that as an interpretation.
Gooey dude is a mutant, then. Okay, so we're it's not just ecological disaster; it's also extraterrestrial warfare. It's 2 things. It's both of these.
Well, I think we're hitting on what the game did well.
Oh, actually, specifically, this is the beginning bit on New Form. New Form is Maine's pride and joy. Created from organic chemistry, Newform is the only experiment in giving life to liquid material that succeeded. Newform can change her figure to complement her quick and
Lady.
fluid motion, creating
She's a
any of a
lady.
number of weapons. Its punches are wicked, and the slip slide attack can catch an opponent completely off guard.
Wait. The pronouns are playing fast and loose here, Mike.
Yes,
What is Newform's gender identity?
I don't know.
Yes. The answer is yes.
I think this isn't even a question of gender. I guess the gender identity would be she, but the question is personhood is not as certain, because I guess as soon as it drops down to not a person, it becomes I don't know how this works.
How very French.
I'm sure there's a flow chart somewhere.
I hope so.
Flowchart. Really? Flowchart. That's pretty clever.
I get it. That is
So I think
good.
we're touching on something that the game's lore is kind of the best thing about it. Like the premise, the characters.
I should have said Newform was gender fluid.
There we go. Dun. All right. Well, so we like the premise and sort of lore behind it. Can we get into some Joy Cons?
Yeah, I'm going to start. This was horrifically unintuitive because you have the basic moves that are not worth anything. You really only need, like, it is all these special moves that are incredibly difficult to figure out. Only some have ranged attacks. And in some weird decision that I eventually gave up, looked some stuff up and figured out how this works, it's not just that you have to do like hit back and then something. You have to hold it for some amount of time to charge it to be able to do some of these special attacks.
Is that what you were doing?
Like when we were fighting the one that is like the fly across the screen with like rotating legs, yeah, that one I have to hold away for a bit before attacking, because if I just go back and then forward, it won't do it.
It's too complicated for a game like this.
That's too complicated, especially for a thing that you never told anyone, because I would never expect I have to hold buttons in order to do these things.
So that was not in the manual.
That was not in the manual. The basic moves were, but the basic moves were not useful. All the good, and the manual's like, here's the basic moves, but if you want to win, you have to use the moves we didn't tell you about.
But then does it tell you about them?
No, it does not.
So they tell you, they allude in the manual to moves that they never explain to you.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even allude. They tell you that they're there. Yeah, they're clear that they're there. Sick. And they are like, if someone's done something to you, try and see if you can figure out what you have to hit to do that to them. Or they did give the same button combination will probably do a special move for multiple people. So if you once you figure it out, then it'll work. At which point, why didn't you?
So in other words, Mike, what you're saying is like, it's spray me in the eyes because that's how it happened to me. Is basically how you should learn how to play this game.
Yeah,
more or less. Yeah, and one thing I really hated about the controls is that like you have to press a separate button to jump and a separate button to block. And it's like on Street Fighter and like Fighter's History, like you just hold away from the enemy to block. You just press up on the joystick to jump. And then you free up the other face buttons for more types of attacks. This game, there's only one punch and one kick. And
it didn't feel like the controls were very sophisticated.
Actually, I preferred that.
Yeah, no, but see, I don't prefer that because it just makes the game a lot more like there's just less to learn. There's less nuance. And especially when you have a character like Grimrock.
I prefer that to having the shoulder buttons also involved on this, which is too many attack and too many punches and kicks.
Well, but so then what I was trying to say is that you have a character like Grimrock who has like one special move, and then now it's like there's just not a whole lot to learn. And then with the roster being so small, there's only 7 characters that are playable, and it's just like it felt shallow in a bad way.
What would shallow in a good way have looked like, Jeremy?
I mean, shallow in a good way is like checkers. You know what I mean? Like there's only like so many things you can do, but there's a lot of strategy in it. Not sorry to take your joke and give a serious answer.
No, it wasn't a joke, Jeremy. I wanted to know. I
didn't enjoy how simple this game felt, and I didn't enjoy the hit detection, the frames of the game. I don't know if you guys saw earlier, I had G.I. Joe up here, but this game reminds me of playing with G.I. Joe action figures because they're real small. They have very little articulation. You're just kind of banging them against each other. I never felt that powerful or that in control of my actions. And I think power and control are like 2 needed feelings for a good fighting game. And I didn't get either from this one.
It was a slog. It was a slog to fight in the battle. The the fights, because the regular moves were so ineffectual, like the fights took a long time and you were doing the same thing over and over, and the backgrounds were cool, but they were pretty muted, like everything was a pretty muted color palette, so there wasn't really anything like that interesting to look at while you were like slowly pummeling this guy like with an inch of his life, and it got boring.
It did. It really did. Also, one of the game's more innovative features is the single player mode. After every fight, you can level up your character. You can, so the more life you finish with, the more points you get. So that's kind of neat. Like if you do better in a match, you'll get more experience points. You can power up arm power, leg power, defensive power, vitality power, which heals you faster, and then soul power, which, as Mike knows in the manual, is a really weird mechanic.
I think also the bonus points, I think, also depends on a little bit on who you were fighting as well, I think.
Okay.
What does the soul power do, Mike?
It says it's something about like it increases your chances of like coming back when you're losing or something. I don't understand how that actually functions in practice.
Like there's a Deus Ex Machina that like comes in and takes care of it for you.
I have no clue.
So there is, when you're in your last like box of health, there is a percentage chance where your attacks become super powered and you do a lot more damage. And the more soul power you have, the more likely that super state is likely to trigger.
That makes a lot more sense then, that this is actually using those bars in another way. Because your life is divided up into these 4 bars, and as your health is going down, you can recover, but you can only recover up to the number of bars you currently have occupied. So in other words, if you're at like 2.5 bars, you can't heal back up to full health anymore.
Which is clever.
But getting your opponent down to the last bar also comes up in this game as changing what happens.
Yeah, that's what's changing.
This is also too complicated for a game like this. Like I shouldn't have to remember that my bar will go up to a certain point and no more while I'm like bashing somebody's head. That shouldn't be part of the exercise. Like there's so much about this game that's really like customizable and complicated, and it's like there are other things that actually make games fun that it sacrifices to do this.
I do find it interesting that you can actually like take your character from single player and take them into multiplayer with how you've powered them up.
Yeah, with a password system, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Oh, I miss when they had password systems.
It's potentially a really cool idea because you can, level up your character. And if you had a friend who also had this game, you could fight your 2 leveled up characters against each other. But it's just hard for me to get too excited about the system because like at your base level, you do such small amounts of damage. And so like, I feel like the reason they make your attacks so weak is so you have incentive to level them up. But that's like making the game less fun for a long time. A lot of this game is an interesting idea, but I don't know if they stuck the landing on any of their innovations, honestly.
There's a reason why in fighting games, when you get to the next level or you level up, you get a new costume. You don't become more powerful for like the most part. You want to start out as powerful as you really can, because otherwise the game is just not, you're like you were saying, it's not as much fun,
Yeah. You get better with increasing your skills.
Yeah, exactly. You don't like increase your raw power, you increase your like knowledge of how to work with it. That's the fun in games like this.
Very well said. I completely agree. Do you guys have anything else to criticize about this game before we go to our rankings?
No, I think I've been mean enough. These poor things.
Yeah, I think I've covered all my issues here.
Yeah, it was just a weird amalgamation.
It's a very weird amalgamation. It's a very weird hybrid of all kinds of things. Before we go on to our NintenDO's or NintenDON'Ts, let's ask Mike, did you beat Doomsday Warrior?
I went to the easy level, but yeah, I beat this and reached the credits.
Nintendo. Family computer.
How about you, Kristal? Did you beat Doomsday Warrior?
I know I had much better things to do than beat this game.
Well, I did.
Nintendo. Family computer.
And I'm glad I did because I think this game has a couple of cool final bosses. There's the angel character has like swords and like weird propeller attacks, and Asura has like fireballs, and he can kind of strike sort of a statuesque pose as he sort of meditates on you. There's some cool stuff happening at the end of this game, but
The Angel's also a total jerk because if he spends the whole thing flying, if he beats you, he lowers down to step on you.
yeah.
And it's like if he was on the ground already, that'd be one thing. But like he could have just stayed flying.
It's a good little bit of storytelling, honestly, that he comes down to earth just to put his boot on your throat. Like it's pretty rad.
It feels so petty.
What a jerk.
All right, so Kristal, let's
Yes.
start off our Nintendo and NintenDON'T. We'll have you go first with Fighter's History on the Super Nintendo. What is your verdict?
All right. I thought that Fighter's History was a Nintendo. I thought it wore its influences on its sleeve. You could tell exactly who it was trying to be, where it got most of its ideas from. But even if you've never played any other game that it took influences from, the depth of like the characters and the design care that the care that they took to design the backgrounds and everything made it just a really pretty game to look at and a fun game to play. They really fleshed out a lot of really nice things about it. So I think it's Nintendo.
Awesome. I think I definitely agree. I also think that there's a kind of an academic case for this being the better fighting game than Street Fighter 2 because of how horribly Street Fighter 2
Ooh.
was translated to Nintendo Switch Online. The Genesis 6-button controller did not translate to the Pro controller layout at all well. This one is the Super Nintendo's layout they're trying to emulate, so like it just works kind of better. And you also don't need to pay the expansion pack to get access to this one. This one is set up at the base tier pricing. So, Lord help me, but it's a Nintendo for me. What about you, Mike?
I think I'm going NintenDON'T.
Oh,
I
Oh.
appreciate the backgrounds. I think they're more interesting, but I did not have fun with it. I think it's simple as that.
it's weird because you seem decent at these games, but you just aren't enjoying them. That's wild. Okay,
Hmm.
well, I'm glad Crystal's here because now we rule against you.
Well, I did. I mean, I beat him, Jeremy.
You
Let's
did.
not forget that.
Yes.
Yes, I
He's actually just bitter.
I did a real good job.
And Crystal,
Yes.
what do you think about Doomsday Warrior? Nintendo or Nintendo?
I think that the best thing about this game was the cover. I thought it was really frustrating to play. It was like somehow it had some of the most interesting character design that I really thought of its era. The characters, like some of them were trippy, like that dragon guy and that like heavy metal wrestler guy. They were cool, but it wasn't fun to play. Like it wasn't fun to just hammer away at somebody over and over again until they finally succumbed. That's not why I play these games. And I thought that the colors, even though the backgrounds were interesting, the colors weren't really enough to hold my attention. I found this NintenDON'T, was not a fan.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think on this one, I thought the character designs were interesting, and then that it just didn't do anything particularly fun with them. So I think there's elements that I appreciate, the character design, the way your character powers up, I actually like, but I'm going Nintendo.
Yeah, I think this game, it deserves a lot of credit for not just blatantly ripping off Street Fighter, because apparently that was an option. So, they at least, they understood the assignment, but they did not pass. It has a lot of really interesting ideas, and just none of them are executed well. And, it's not fun to look at, really. It's not fun to play at all. So I think it's the effort that was clearly put into it. I think it spares it from one of our lowest rating. It's not a Super Nintendo, just because it is a big swing, and I admire a big swing, but
It's a light NintenDON'T.
it's a reluctant Nintendo, honestly. It was almost a Nintendo just for being weird enough, but I can't recommend, dear listener, that you give up your time for it.
Or Doomsday
Although it
Warrior.
doesn't need that much time to get through, at least like you can get through the easy in a couple hours.
But you
Sure,
could do so much with that time instead, Mike.
But are you gonna?
Oh, you speak for yourself.
We're going to call that game over for today. The final scores are Doomsday Warrior, a NintenDON'T, and Fighter's History, a NintenDO. And don't forget, guys, these are both Super Nintendo games. So if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have the base level subscription required to play it. Give it a play and let us know what you think. Kristal, thank you so much for joining us. It's been just a blast through the past. Before you go, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find your stuff and where they can find the Lazy Circles?
Definitely, yeah. So if you want to hear some of the music that if you like the theme song,
the awesome theme
if
song.
if you like the theme song and you want to hear more, our Instagram is The Lazy Circles, spelled common spelling, nothing fancy. And if you're in the LA area, we have some shows probably coming up around whenever this episode airs. So if you follow us on Instagram, you'll find out when those are.
That's awesome. And thanks again for the theme song.
Oh, it was so much fun. That was some of the best 40 seconds I think I've had in a long time, Jeremy. So thank you.
Mike, keep it classy. I see you laughing. We almost got through this episode, everybody. I can't control this man. Everyone, join us next time when Mike and I plumb deeper into the Nintendo Switch online catalog in our epic quest to research and review them all. Next on the docket, it's a big one, Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels with my friend Margot. You won't want to miss it. Also, don't forget to visit www.theoldswitcheroo.com, where you can find links to our Spotify, Discord, YouTube, TikTok, and all the social medias you can shake a joystick at. You can even leave an old-timey voicemail, meaning we would literally love to hear from you. Please like, comment, subscribe, and review. And as always, thanks for listening to the Old Switcheroo. We've been talking gaming retro with Kristal, Mike, and Jaymo.
I've been Mike.
And I've been Jaymo.
Oh, and I've been Kristal.
Game on, everyone.
I thought Jean was cool.
Jean or Jean, the Frenchman?
Jean. Yeah, I guess it would be Jean. I thought.
The French Guile.
All right, edit that out then.